Morning, everybody. It's John from Live and Ready. I just thought I'd have a little chat with you today. I haven't really got anything to show you, like practically around the garden or any particular um, stuff to share from Scripture directly. But I just wanted to spend a little bit of time with you, having a mull over. Because yesterday I had a little bit of it was an interesting experience actually. It was quite a strange thing. I was just chilling out. I've got a little well, it's not so little actually. I've got a 10 foot like frame pool, like a plastic frame pool, which I put up in the summer. It's great for in between meetings on Zoom, just to dive in there for 5 minutes, get dried off, and go to the next meeting. Brilliant. Um, but as I was sitting there, um, the kids were inside, and I was just by myself. I was sitting in the pool, and I just had this sudden thought of everything's not going to stay the same. There's change coming, and listen, that might be for me personally, but it also might be a sense of wider change coming. But let me just kind of explain how it went. And I was sitting in the pool, and I'm looking at like the patterns on the inside of the pool, which a little bit bizarre, but it's a nice little pattern. And I was just sitting there going, do you know what? I really appreciate this moment. This is a moment. It's really peaceful. It was calming. I was relaxing. I was chilling. I was nice and cold in the flipping scorching heat. Um, and it was just a lovely moment. But there was this real decisive sense of this will not be like this forever. It will not stay like this forever. And so I ended up just like looking around my garden, looking around my house, looking at my cabin, looking at everything that my wife and I and the family have built up here for the last 20 years, with this just a sense of a thankfulness and appreciation. And of course, I directed that towards God and just really thanking Him for everything that we have, but have been through up until this stage now. But that sense of it won't stay like this forever stuck with me. Um, and I think I sat there quietly for maybe 10 minutes, just in silence, just taking in the moment. And we don't do this very often, do we? We're so busy in our lives, going from one thing to another, or from one job to another, or from one task to another. Got to do this, got to do. And at the moment, we're in taxi service mode. My wife was like taxi service for the last 2 days for the kids, taking them different places, which is it's a real privilege for this phase of life. For her, I got away with it this weekend. It'll be me soon again. But this sense of change, I think, is something that it's worth talking about and reflecting upon. And I'd encourage you just to kind of um, take moments out to be appreciative of what you have and what God has given you, because I do believe that change is coming. And I've had a variety of conversations with, lots of people, people at church, people outside of church, people at work, friends, dog walkers, all sorts of people. And when I talk about what I'm doing with, this living ready, there's very rarely a sense of what are you doing, but occasionally there are people who quite often say, and they are kind of like really structured in their thinking. Um, but what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And and I think the main question is, for me, why do people think that the Western society and the comforts that we've had, typically since the Second World War, why do we think that that's going to last? There's almost this underlying assumption or presumption that what we have built will never be, it'll never be torn down. It'll never disintegrate. How could it? We're modern people in a modern age, relying on technology and advancing at incredible pace and doing incredible accomplishments. Science and medicine, and I mean, you name it. But actually, a lot of that, I think, is just based on pride. Um, or fear, because there's that two sides of the coin. It can't change because we're doing so good, or please don't let it change because I'm really enjoying this. And I think that's what I'd like to just reflect on today, is that we cannot deny that things are changing. We've had incredible comfort for a long, long time, for decades. Um, I mean, obviously, a long time ago, Cold War wasn't great, um, and we've locally. I'm saying local as in global, but locally, the times of the troubles in Northern Ireland, terrorism, and all of that stuff that was going on at that period of time was awful. But actually, we've been living in relative comfort compared to places that have had, significant conflicts and constant conflicts. A lot of places, but you can't deny that something's going on now. Look, whether you believe in God or not, something's going on. And I think we've got to sit up and take stock. Not that we should be fearful about this. Will keep on saying this. Not that we should be fearful about it, but that we should look to become real. And that's why living ready is important. We've got to be authentic. We've got to be realistic. We've got to plan for the future. And what I'm seeing and feeling is that, the future is going to look different. It is highly likely that the future is going to look different, even in the UK. Yes, we might be an island, and lots and lots of conflicts seem to be far away from us. But just there's something stirring, and I'm not going on a doom and gloom. Woe is the future, etc. Although we have to think about that because worst case scenarios could be pretty bad. But let's just take time reflecting now on what's happening in our lives, what's happening locally within our settings, what's happening within the UK and the government, what's happening within the future policies that are being drafted and written up by this government, because there's some significant changes planned and being prepared for. And I won't go into that now, but what I'll say is that there are things that you talk about, Israel and Iran, Ukraine and Russia, and so many other conflicts around. But with the rise of technology comes the huge risk of technology, cyber attacks, etc. And that's not what I want to focus on. What I want to just sow a seed in your thinking is take the time to realize that actually history tells us that life does not stay static, and that societies and humanity does not stay static. We are not going to sit around in our Western society where we're at now, static, comfortable, etc. Because you look 30, 40 years ago and just think of that moment 30, 40 years ago. If you fast forward and if you were able to see the future in 2025, 30 or 40 years ago, you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked at where we are and the advances that we've made and the decisions that we've made. And so, what does 30 or 40 years from now look like? We don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like, to be fair. Things are happening so fast. And so, I'd love to just encourage you to have a think about that. What's happening? How do you need to think about the future? Because we just go in presumptive mode. I think we go into, what's your 5-year plan? Typical question. What's your 5-year plan? In 5 years' time, what would you see yourself doing? I haven't got a flipping clue. And so I'm really trusting God for our future, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with the fact that I trust God. But guess what? I know that God hates us being comfortable, because when we get comfortable, we sit there, and apathy grows, lethargy grows, and we turn away from God. And that, I believe, is where the church is at. There might be a number of people turning towards God saying, hey, what's on your agenda? Because this is really important that we don't miss your agenda and your priorities, God. And that's what I'd encourage you to do. Just forget your plans and agendas and seek God, because that's what God says. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. And righteousness just means His way of doing things correctly. Because we think that we've got it nailed down. Guess what? We haven't. We need His perspective. We need His guidance. And I just would love to say on this Sunday, have a great Sunday. Take some time out. Sunday's supposed to be a good day of rest. Take some time out to rest and have a think and have a reflect, because things are going to change and things are changing. But what we do now to prepare for an unknown future, which we really don't know, we're only in control of a very small part of our lives. But let's take a look at the big picture together. Consider, what is it that we could do to live ready better than we are now. Thanks so much. Bless you. Bye.